One more thing. I thought we were ready. One more thing. Now I need that light back. It gets grainy. If I don't put the light on you, it's grainy. You know what I mean? It gets real grainy. Yeah. So if I put the light on you, I don't want to blast it in your face. All right, we're good.
This is a Jmix exclusive.
Would you like to plug what you're currently doing?
Sure, yeah. Plug some bands that I'm working with and what I'm trying to do at the studio here, and maybe talk about the TI shows I'm doing in Vegas.
Okay.
That's pretty good.
You're currently working with TI.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing work with TI?
I think it's been about maybe 6 months or so now, maybe a little longer. Yeah, he's got a residency out in Vegas at Club Dre's, and he performs there once or twice a month. And I've been doing his front of house sound out there. And yeah, everything, he's been pretty happy with that. He's a pretty nice guy to work with. I like him. He's real cool, real on it, real on his game. His show is really good, I hadn't been to a TI show before. I had mixed one, but well, yeah, he puts on a good show. He's smart. I like his intelligence. I think yeah, I like that gig. I'm glad I came across that one. I've been going out to New York, and we did Showtime at the Apollo the other night. Maybe it was a couple weeks ago or so. And that was pretty good. Anderson .Paak was there, and yeah, we did a Jimmy Kimmel show together. I did the mix for that. So yeah, I've been doing a little bit of stuff here and there for him. It's been pretty good.
I don't know the word that I'm looking for, but how long will he be in Vegas?
Yeah, that I'm not sure about yet. I don't know how long his contract for the residency is for, but I hope it continues on for a little while.
When you do a residency, do they basically? I mean, the venue is theirs. There's no other entertainers that come in when they're doing a residency, right?
No, they have other entertainers come in.
Do they?
That's why he only performs there once a month.
Got it. Okay. So the board, you can't just leave it and come back to it and hope that it's where you left it.
No, but it's a digital board. We store the show and then just load it back up for the next one.
Got it.
It's easy these days.
Yeah.
That's
kind of cool. If you don't mind my asking, can you kind of tell us the difference over how it's like progressed over the last 20 years? How things have been is it more just kind of plug and play, or?
Yeah, no, it's not really plug and play. I mean, you still got to do some work for it. But in the old days, you had a console. You had to set all your gear exactly the same way that it all was. You could, people had old tricks that they would take a snapshot of the board and hopefully put it back to how it was, the last time they had it. But you always, it all depends on the outboard gear you got plugged in and all. These days you got your plugins, you got digital settings. You can load it up off of a thumb drive, a little flash drive, and you're rocking your show. You can do, I do a couple tweaks on it, here and there. We do line checks, and of course everything's going to be a little different from the way the mics are set up and things like that. But it's not going to be too different,
Is that how when you guys go on tour, like when you're like a road tour, for example? Is that kind of how they keep it the same? They just kind of load it up, set the boards up, load it up.
Yeah, some tours do. If it's like a real tour that stays the same, like Coachella, I don't know, I guess Coachella's not really a tour, but if it's something that they're doing over and over, you know, then yeah, they usually bring their own gear and then they just set it up and we just load it up the next day. But when I was touring with Snoop, we'd go to the venue, there'd be a different board there some nights, it'd be different, you know, you could never count on it being the same, you know, and I was just really fast at pulling mix together real fast before, you know, before things started crashing down on everything.
Now, you were there for the Troy Avenue incident.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? How that night was going for you and kind of what happened there?
Yeah, that was up in New York. We were doing a TI show and everything was going good. We did a sound check for it. Everything was great. And then there was a couple opening acts there. And I think Troy Ave was maybe one of the opening acts. And when he came in to the venue, they came in the back way. I had noticed that they didn't check me for any weapons or anything like that. You know, and I thought, well, that's a little weird for a hip-hop show in New York. But, you know, I guess as it is what it is, you know. And so they started going through the show. People performed. And then apparently Troy Ave came in the back door and brought a gun and everything and started shooting at some people. I heard like some gunshots and I saw a bunch of people running across the stage. You know, I'm like, what is going on? And then I saw like people, you know, just kind of scattering around trying to get out and all. And there was 3 more shots I heard, and I was just like, wow. And from when I read about it later, you know, one of them came through a wall and went up, and I think that's the guy that we had to walk around when, you know, because I saw him on the floor, he wasn't moving, and I was just like, wow, we got to get out of here. You know, I had my mom as a guest there. It was the most ridiculous show to ever have her at. But, you know, she's pretty tough. And we got out of there. It was a stampede going down the stairs and stuff. And I was gone. As soon as I heard and I saw I was out of there, as soon as I heard gunshots and everybody trampling, I was gone. I called the tour manager. She's like, where you at? And I'm like, man, I'm pretty much almost at a hotel by now, you know.
Was this during a performance where you actually...
Yeah, you know, it was supposed to be, and it was like in between acts, so they were still setting up for T.I. to come out. And so a lot of the opening acts came on, and we were just waiting for T.I. to come out. He was still in the dressing room, and you know, then that happened. He never came out.
Have they set up security since then? I guess that would be the question that people want to know.
At the venue that we were at, I would have hoped so, right? But I'm not in New York, so I wouldn't know. You know, it was in New York City.
Absolutely.
I don't know how they do it there. It was at this little place down in like Soho, you know, and I forget even the name of the place, but it was. I'm sure they have by now because there was a lot of flack about it in the papers and things like that. You know.
I guess the question would be, I mean, it's especially here in Vegas, it's safe to go to a TI show. It's not a violent revenue. I mean,
no, it doesn't seem like a violent arena. You know, there's a lot of people with money in there. You know, it might be a little, you know, more of a tougher crowd because it's a little, you know, more hip hop based. You know, but yeah, you know, it's pretty tame in there and everything. You know, they got a lot of security there, and you're not going in there without getting checked and stuff. You know, but.
I have to ask you, because the first thing that I noticed when I walked in this room is this big board that's sitting behind you.
Yeah, my SSL.
For those that don't know what it is, can you tell us a little bit about what it is and kind of the history of these?
It's a 1987 console. It's a SSL 60 56 channel console, and it's an E series. you know, and it's one of my favorite. You know, I mixed most of my hit records that I've done. I've mixed on this type of console, and you know, when I had the opportunity to get one, and I got this place, I said, man, that's the first place I got to start is with these Oshberger speakers that I got up there, and this console. And that's where I wanted to start. You know, I needed my own at that point. You know, and yeah, I just like the way it sounds. Got a good analog sound. And yeah, you know, it's my thing. You know, a lot of people like Neves, a lot of people like different consoles, but you know, I really like the sound of this console.
It's like a pair of shoes. You
Yeah,
sound
pretty much,
engineer,
right?
and it has a different one that feels comfortable.
Everything, yeah, feels comfortable, and you know, I mean, you can get the different. Each one is definitely individual, but they all got the same type of sound to them. And I think, you know, it's my thing, you know. I like it. Whenever I was recording Death Row vocals, I would run a vocal. Really, you know, there's all these external mic preamps and stuff like that. You can use compressors and everything, but I would run my vocal right through one of the mic pre's on the board, through a SSL compressor on the board. Probably a little a little high pass filter on it. And I usually didn't record with much EQ or any EQ, but yeah, I would use that as a sound. And you know, a lot of people use different things, but it always works just fine for me. You know?
Do you think that analog has I know there's an argument about this, but in your opinion, does analog have a better sound quality than the digital mixing boards that
I
people
don't
use?
know if it's better. It's different. You know, it's different. You can hear the difference. You know, I think for what you give up in sound quality, maybe you could make up for in ease, user friendliness, cost. The budget is more. It's more easily. Come to in a digital system. You can make it happen in that. This was different. When I was working on these and Death Row and everything, there was one guy in the room that could work all this stuff and all this stuff back here, and that was me. There was one guy, and it was always like an engineer, but he had to be skilled at using all these analog pieces, the patch bay, where all those things go. I mean, where the amps go, all the signal path. I mean, it was a little different than now. You had to really be skilled and know what you're doing to get a great sound out of it. Whereas now, I think it just takes a different skill. I'm not saying that people making music now aren't skilled, but it just takes a little different skill, a little more computer savvy-ish skill. I still think that the cost efficiency of digital is way better than using tape and stuff, but it's something, again, you give up the sound of tape, But then again, tape, people argue that it didn't sound that good from the beginning because it always had hiss on it, and it always had, you had to make sure you aligned it right, if you didn't align it right, it was going to be off, and it might not ever be the same from session to session. So there's a lot of things and a lot of variables there you're giving up. But I like a mixture of it. I like to use the board for an analog sound, use a couple pieces of outboard gear, maybe an external mic preamp these days, maybe not, There's a few I like. It's NAMM weekend, so I'll be going down there talking to the guys at BAE, and the Waves plugin guys are always really nice to me, so I use those plugins all the time, And, It's a different day and age, I think you see you got to go with the times. You got to go with how things are kind of going, even though you want to not always follow trends, but you got to keep up with trends, and use them to your advantage.
Is that how you manage to stay relevant?
I think so. I mean, there was a long time. I mean, I didn't even go to a digital world until like 2001. I didn't want to buy a computer and all the digital boards and all this stuff. I was like, I don't want to do all that. But ended up, I did. because that's just what was happening right then, you know, and you kind of had to. People were bringing in sessions, and if you couldn't open them up, I mean, it was ridiculous, you know. What, you're going to transfer everything? You know, it would have been retarded. So, just kind of had to go with it. I got all my first stuff in 2001. I bought a little cheap little Digio 1 system to try it out and see if I liked it. And then once I got used to it, then we stepped up. I got HD now. I got all that stuff now. But, yeah. So we started out on it.
You brought up this is what you used at Death Row Records. I know it's a kind of a broad question, but how does Dave Aron get to start engineering and working at Death Row Records?
I was out of Memphis. I had gone to Rutgers in New Jersey for a year, and then I decided to go to Memphis, and I got a degree down there in commercial music, which emphasized recording engineering. And I figure, I can go out and get a job doing this. So I got a job at the newly renovated Sun Studio, and that was a cool vibe there. I got a lot of useful information on how to record live things and everything. And when I was there, somebody was there working. They told me, you seem pretty good, but you ought to move to where the music's being made. And I was like, I was like, where's that? And they're like, Los Angeles. And, back then, everyone was just coming to Los Angeles to make their music. It wasn't like they could make it all over in these bedroom studios and the independent studios all over the country. It was just here. So when I got out of here, I started working at, I applied at a place called Larrabee, and I finally got a job over there. And I noticed, everyone was coming in there to record. Every day it was somebody big, somebody new on the books. That was huge. It was like David Bowie, Tina Turner, George Michael, Prince, all this. And so, I ended up working. I worked there as an assistant, a runner first and an assistant, and I started staff engineering. And I was working with Prince a lot, and that was a good time. I had a good time working with Prince. I don't know if a lot of people had a good time working with Prince, because he was kind of rough sometimes on people, but we always got along fine.
What about him was rough on people? What do you mean?
He demanded perfection, and he wanted it immediately. And if you weren't able to deliver that, he'd be really hard on you. He liked girl engineers, so he'd have them running out crying sometimes, and it was ridiculous. And luckily, he liked me. I was in there giving him everything he wanted, and so that went a long way. Especially even over to Death Row Records, I had gone over there because I'd been working with a lot of gangster rap groups. There was this place over in Winsonic, a studio, and they had a band called Grand Jury who had that place locked out, and I was working with them a lot. And it just seemed like finally a lot of the guys would go there to work at Larrabee. They'd already done the Chronic there. They'd already done Doggy Style there. And they had, they used to come in with these huge posses, and, I don't know, they're probably armed, and there's weed all over the place and all this stuff. And, the studio owners were a little, weirded out, by all of that, And, I had worked on hip-hop before, I'd gone to a all-black school in Asbury Park, New Jersey, so there was a ton of hip-hop we were listening to and everything. So I kind of had a good background for it. And it was good at getting along with people, because, if you didn't, you were going to get messed up in New Jersey, so you end up having to get along with people. So I was really good at it. And Larrabee called me and said, do you want to work with these guys? They're in here and they need an engineer. And I said, sure, So I went up there, and they went back and told the girl who was hiring a lot of engineers that they really liked me. And she said, man, she called me, she said, if you want to work on a lot of stuff, I can call you to work on a lot of things, a lot of projects. And I was like, sure. I'd love to work on a lot of projects, you know. It was like my first real thing going on. I mean, Prince was cool, but I was still getting it through being on staff and everything, you know. This was like a real independent engineering mixing gig, you know, where they really trusted me for my mixing and everything. So, yeah, I ended up over at Death Row. And everybody I was working with was giving me good reviews and telling them that they really liked working with me. And so I ended up working with Daz a lot. Daz was working out at Larrabee sometimes. He didn't want to work at Can-Am a lot. You know, there was a lot of people working at Can-Am, and he kind of wanted a little different spot. And they had budget to put people different places, so he wanted to work at Larrabee where they did the Chronic. And they set me up with Daz. And me and Daz hit it right off, you know. We just hit it right off. And he, you know, he was doing the dog food album at that time with Corrupt, you know, but he was producing it and everything. So I did a lot of mixes on that album. And I think Dre remixed it over again at some point. But I'd worked, engineered a lot of that stuff, mixed on a lot of it. Got really good close with Daz. And, you know, Snoop would come in now and then, and he was working, you know, he'd like drop some verse or something like that on Daz's stuff, on the dog food. And Daz was always like, yeah, that's my engineer right there, man, he's tight, you know, and all this stuff. And, you know, Snoop was finally like, you know, hey, man, you know, you want to be my engineer? And I was like, sure. I mean, you know, I'll be all your engineers, because, you know, I just wanted to be working a lot.
Gainful employment, right?
Yeah, you know, and they seemed nice to work with and everything, you know. No one was a problem. I didn't understand why everyone was scared to work with them and all. I wasn't scared to work with them. They were really nice. It was fun. We played video games sometimes, all that stuff. It was fun. But
did that ever change over time as, you know, the popularity got more and more, the egos got more and more? Did you ever see that change at all?
Not with Snoop or Dog Pound or, you know, any of that camp. No, you know. I mean, you know, I think Pac was a little more, I'd say, egotistical than Snoop, you know, really was. And I think that he was a lot different than Snoop, you know, where Snoop would roll up 5 blunts and take a hit and pass it all around, you know. And, you know, Pac would roll a blunt and take like 10 hits, and then he'd pass what was left over, you know. So it was just a different vibe, you know. It wasn't like, you know, Pac was a dick or nothing. It was just that he was just different than Snoop. You know, Snoop's always been really generous, really cool and everything, you know. So, of course, I hit it off right away with Snoop, you know. And, you know, Pac was fun in the studio. He would always bag on people and do all this stuff. And it was fun, you know. It was a fun environment. But it was just a lot different than with Snoop. So when I was doing some Snoop albums over there. And I was working on Dogfather and a couple things after. And, you know, he was like, I'd like my live sound to be as good as my studio sound. And, you know, he said, you want to go on the road with me and do my concerts? And I was like, that sounds good. I knew it was going to take me out of the studio a little bit, but I had already been seasoned because I had to make money doing live shows through college and stuff, you know, so I already knew how to do that. And I was like, sure, man, I can't pass up, you know, going on the road with Snoop all around the world. I think our first trip was like a world tour, you know, the first one I took, you know, so... yeah, I was seeing all these different countries, all these different places, and it was pretty cool. And, you know, at the same time, like I said, Snoop and I had a great relationship. So it wasn't like I was just riding a crew bus and having to deal with all the roadies and this and that. I was riding with Snoop on his bus, you know. We're in the back blowing and playing Xbox the whole trip to the next place, you know. And so it made it a lot cooler. It was more like, you know, it's more like a family environment or something. It felt a lot closer than a lot of tours I would imagine would be, you know.
You even went with him when he went to No Limit.
Yeah, yeah. I still did stuff over No Limit, and we still did a lot of concerts. Actually, I remember C Murder. I mixed his concert for him because I was already there, you know. C Murder's like, man, I want my shit to sound good too, you know. I was like, I got you, you know. And his show was only like 15 minutes or something like that, you know. I was like, I'll just charge you half of what I'm charging Snoop, you know. And he was like, that's cool. And he paid me in cash every night at the end. And I was like, this is great.
That's a great gig.
Yeah, yeah, this was great. So I would be doubling it up on the road there. And then No Limit thing was pretty cool. I liked a lot of those guys. I did Cain and Abel's album.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I got a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff through my years, man.
I seen you make a cameo in the Dog Named Snoop video from the Bone soundtrack.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'd get into those things every now and then, slide into a video here and there.
Yeah, I think you're leaving the store with a bag of chips.
Bag of chips, right? Like I was stealing it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I remember that.
One question about death row. Everybody talks about the negative aspect of death row. It's a two-part question. How was your relationship with Suge Knight? And the second part of that would be, did you get any positive experience from interaction with him?
Yeah, I got a ton. I didn't have problems with Suge. Every time I saw Suge, he was jovial, running around laughing, you know, counting his hundreds of millions of dollars he had made, you know. He was always in a good mood. When I saw him, I had heard stories about when he wasn't and stuff, but for me, he was always great. And, you know, I did get a lot out of it. I mean, I got a lot of great credits out of it. I got, you know, a nice bankroll out of that whole situation. But besides that, I mean, just watching Suge in action, it was just a trip to see how he would maneuver people into what he wanted, you know. I mean, some people might call it bullying, but some people might call it being really assertive, you know. But he seemed to get what he wanted, you know, by just asking for it. And whether it was him being huge or I don't know what it quite was or the way he asked, but, you know, usually people would just say, yeah, you know.
Do you think people were just naturally intimidated of him?
I think there was definitely an intimidation factor there. Whether he asserted it or not was kind of, you know, dependent on the situation. I don't think he constantly was like, you know, in fact, nobody was constantly like G'd up all the time, you know. Nobody's like always ready to kill somebody or always ready to beat somebody up or always ready to, you know, do this or that. They're all pretty, they're nice guys, you know. Everybody I was in the studio with was a nice guy until you went the other route and maybe flipped his switch or said something funny to him or, you know, but I didn't say too much, you know, man. I was just there doing my job, making people's stuff sound great. I never had those problems, never, you know. And Suge, he, you know, he'd sign my checks and, I mean, we were all good. He was up here one time, you know, up here at the studio. That was a long time later.
There seems to be this public image that at the studio, a bunch of gang guys hanging around, and it was always this, you know, embattled environment. It's like, how do you get productive if it's going to be like that?
Because it wasn't like that.
Yeah, it's counterproductive.
And that's why. It wasn't really like that, you know. It was, people were getting stuff done. It wasn't like you were in there. I was never in fear for my life when I was up there. I wasn't like, oh man, I hope this doesn't go bad, or anything like that, you know. It was. In fact, only one time up here we had something that was weird, you know. But nothing up there. It was like I was really surprised that it wasn't like you'd envision it. It wasn't like the story said. You know, it was a little funny. It was crazy because it was like you'd get used to working with a lot of people in the room. It was like, you know, I remember mixed sessions where there were like 40 people in the control room, in this size control room right here. It was like they're gambling, throwing dice over there in the corner.
I hope everybody shut up while
You
you're
know.
trying to work. Was it loud?
I mean,
Was it loud?
I block it out. I can block out a lot of stuff, man. You know, when I get focused, I zoom right in, and you know, not to say that I don't hear whatever else is going on either, you know, because I'm so focused that I'm attuned to everything around me, you know what I mean? But no, it didn't throw me off, man, you know what I mean? I wouldn't let that throw me off. I could easily mix through those situations and still get good stuff. And, you know, if it got too much, the artist would usually say something, man, we're trying to mix here, yo, you know, something, you know?
I heard that there was a lot of shuttling around. Like suddenly somebody would come in and there would be a priority, and then this was a priority, and so there was a lot of moving. You know, where it's like we're in the middle of working on something. Nope, got to move.
Yeah.
Was that kind of how it was?
Well, that would happen.
Yeah?
That would happen, yeah. Like when Tupac wanted the studio and he wanted to work on stuff, he needed that studio right then. That was it. You had to shut down whatever. I was like, well, you know, can I just, you know, print it real quick? No. Just take it down, you know what I mean? And like, you know, I'm like, fine. I mean, you know, shit don't matter to me.
You paid either way.
Tell you the truth, that was the real, you know? I was getting paid either way, you know? And at that point, it was hourly, so however long they wanted me to work, I was fine, man. You know, if we had to do the whole thing over again, whatever, you know? And, you know, really, I didn't get too attached to things like that. I don't be like, oh no, my mix, you know, I'll just do it over, you know? It's not that big a deal.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same
You're on
thing.
the clock.
Yeah, you're on the clock.
Would that change of directions, like, hey, Pac wants Studio A or Studio B, would that cause any kind of tension in the studio, or did people just? I guess the question, yeah, did it cause any tension?
I think the guys that got moved out probably weren't pleased about it, that they had to call their session early and they were just vibing and getting things going. And, you know, a lot of people liked that, honestly, that they had me in the room with them working on their stuff, you know what I mean? And that wasn't always available, you know what I mean? If I was working on something else, then you weren't getting me in that room. And so a lot of people would probably be like, oh man, you know, we were just vibing. We had Dave on our stuff. Everything was good, you know, and now we got to shut it down. But that's how it was. There were tiers and levels to, you know, your artistry there. And if you weren't like super A-list, I mean, things got bounced around, man. That's just how it was, you know.
And Can-Am had 2 studios, right? A and B, was it?
Yeah. I had 2 studios, A and B. Yeah.
It's a lot of people to be moving back and forth between 2 studios.
Yeah, but, you know, a lot of times, see, you say that, but the thing is that the lucky part is if Studio A were open and they were moving you. Because if Studio A weren't open and you were using Studio B, your session was just done for the night. That was it. You weren't moving. You were done. Yeah. You know, pack it up, come back tomorrow. You know what I mean? But that's how it was.
You know, I hear a lot, and I'm sorry, I should be shut up. This is Jmix's thing. I'm curious whenever I get people in the industry just ask the questions. Was there kind of a hierarchy? I mean, Death Row was there. Priority Records, I think, was also pretty big at the time. Was there kind of a hierarchy between the 2 labels in terms of, like, Death Row was kind of like the A label and Priority kind of the B label? Was there anything like that? Did you ever find when you were mixing stuff, like, oh, this is for Priority, so the mixes were faster, maybe lower budget, anything like that?
Nah, I never noticed any of that.
The label didn't really make a difference.
You know, the label made a difference when you were invoicing Priority. You had a better chance of getting paid quickly than you did if you were invoicing Death Row. So that I noticed a difference in, you know. But
that's important.
That's a small difference. Yeah, man, you know. But then also Priority, they wouldn't go by my rate that I was charging for Death Row, you know. I was getting a volume rate for Death Row, and, you know, for Priority, they had me mix an artist or something, I might just charge them my full book rate or something, you know. And they wouldn't flinch because, you know, things were popping right then for them. So I was like, nothing. They just tell me how much it's going to be, you know? So, yeah, you know, I mean, that part was all good, you know?
Because I heard there was some artists that got shuttled back and forth between Priority and Death Row, and I never knew if there was any significance to that.
Probably is, you know? I don't know, you know? Like I said, I try to stay out of too much of the business and the politics of it, man. Just let me know when I need to be at the studio, who I'm working with, and, you know, we can go from there.
You got a good Snoop story?
I got like hundreds of good Snoop stories. I'd have to think of one right now. I mean, being on the road with him was a story in itself.
I can imagine there was probably drama, good times and probably drama too.
It was drama, but it was mostly I remember good times. You know, not too much drama. I mean, you know, there's a lot of funny stuff. A lot of stuff that I think.
You said he was generous.
He's very generous, man. You know, we're both Steeler fans. He's a big Steeler fan, and so am I. So we hit it off right on that level right away. So, you know, when the Steelers went to the Super Bowl, I mean, first of all, the Patriots went twice before the Steelers, and he doesn't even like going to the Super Bowl because people are always looking at him, and they won't pay attention to the game. And he's like, look, the game's over there, you know what I mean? And so he gave me his tickets to the Patriots Super Bowls. Nice. But then in the Steelers Super Bowl, he took me and a couple of his friends, and we went to all three of those. You know, we won 2 and lost 1. But, I mean, you know, he doesn't have to do those types of things. I mean, tickets alone are, you know, what? I don't even know. You know, at least $2,500 probably for those tickets. Yep. I had one that was in an owner's box, you know. It was sick, you know. And just to even have us go out there, and we didn't even have a show at one time we went, so he just flew us all there, put us up in hotels, you know, and just because we're his friends, you know. I was like, man, if you don't ever do anything else for me, man, that was enough right there, you know. See my favorite team play in 2 Super Bowls and 3 Super Bowls and win 2 of them. That was sick, you know. And then meet the guys. I mean, I got pictures with Ben Roethlisberger, with Bill Cowher. I got pictures. We went after. I remember the one greatest Super Bowl story was after the Super Bowl. I don't know, you know, I guess he was texting or something like that, you know, and so he was in touch with Joey Porter, and, you know, he was like out in his big limo, Sublime, like this big, giant, what they call suburban limos, you know, and Snoop got in there, and then I was waiting outside, you know, I was like, oh, I guess I'll be out in a minute, and then the door opened, and they're like, where's Dave? And I was like, I'm right here. They said, come in here. Oh, it is great. So I went in, and we smoked like 20 blunts with Joey Porter after the game, you know. And, I mean, who has those types of things happen? Those are great experiences, you know. Smoking blunts with Joey Porter after the Super Bowl with Snoop.
Yeah, I guess there's no drug test after the Super Bowl.
No, he's sad. He's sad, man. He couldn't wait until the season was over. He said, I was looking up there, counting down, saying, man, I'm going to smoke big with Snoop as he's watching the clock tick down. That was pretty sick.
I guess change directions on you. I'm a huge Sublime fan.
Yeah.
And how were you approached to work on their self-titled album?
Yeah, you know, it was funny. I knew this guy. His name was Gene, and he kept telling me about this Sublime guys, you know, they're so good. And he knows this guy, John Phillips, over at the label, who was their A&R guy, and he was helping, you know, deal with the album and everything, you know. And you got to meet them, they're so good, and you got to see them. I'm like, all right, you know. So I remember the one time I went, and I went to see him on the Warped Tour, and I saw, like, they had this whole scene, and not just fans, like a real scene, You know, that was all theirs that they could call their own. And that's what got me. I was just like, these guys, I mean, people, their hardcore audience loves them, you know, and emulates them. And they weren't very rock starish, you know, for the time, you know. They'd be up there with big pot bellies and their shirts off, you know, and swilling beer. And, you know, it looked like a mess, you know what I mean? But that's what people liked about it, you know what I mean? And that's what I liked. I thought, man, this is way cool. So Gene had me go see that show, and I met John Phillips, and he said, man, you know, I'd like you to work on this stuff because you're used to the death row scene and everything, and it's probably really chaotic over there and all. And these guys are like the ultimate in chaos, you know? So I was like, well, I'm good with that stuff, you know what I mean? I'm good at dealing with those types of things, you know? So, you know, I went to the studio down in Long Beach, and I was putting a loop together for what I got, and they, you know, the drummer Bud came in, and he was there for only a couple of minutes, and he was like, where's everybody at? I was like, they said they're coming, you know, all right, I'll be right back when they come. And then, you know, as soon as he leaves, Eric shows up, and I'm like, he's like, where'd everybody go? I'm like, you know, Bud was just here, you know, but he said he's just going to wait on Brad to come, and, you know, so he left too, and then Brad came, and, you know, then, you know, of course they were both gone. And it was just like, you know, it was that the whole night, you know, and it was just funny. Finally, I got some good stuff done out of Bud. We did that April 4th,
Yeah,
and the riot song.
I was gonna ask you about that.
Yeah, and we did a loop for that. But that's when I knew. I said, man, these guys are really good. And I knew that What I Got song, I knew that one was a big one. I said, of all the songs I've ever heard, I want to work on that one. Because that one, I just knew that one was going to be a kind of a hit, you know, I knew it. So.
Do you see it coming? You see a hit coming? Can you hear it through the board?
No, I never do. That's why it was so weird to me then. Because I was like, this is a song that's going to be a hit, you know? And it was very strange because I don't usually, that doesn't happen, you know? I can hear songs, I can work with people, I don't know they're going to be that big. I never knew Tupac was going to be the biggest rapper in the world when he was doing it, you know? I was just sitting there trying to make a buck, you know? Trying to do the best work we can do. And
but you never said when the song would play back or you'd run it on final playback or something, and for listening, you go, you know what? There's just something about this.
I go, I really like this song. I think it came out great.
But you're looking more from a production value, more of a technical.
Yeah,
aspect.
I just don't go, wow, now that's a hit if I ever heard one. I'm telling you, honestly, that was the first time that happened to me, and probably one of the only times, you know, that I said, man, I want to work on that song. That one was something. And probably because it was the Lady Madonna melody line, and so it was already been a hit, you know. So maybe subliminally it was in me. But I liked working with Sublime. They were really cool, and it was just cool how it all kind of came together like that. You know, there was a Long Beach connection between him and Snoop, and all that between, you know, that band and Snoop, and you know, it was funny because Brad at that time, you know, like they loved hip hop and everything, you know, and I had been doing hip hop, and I was like, man, this is great. There was like an angle where I could get in on big rock records and kind of give them a hip hop angle, and they loved that, you know. So I was working at it for a while, and that was pretty cool. And then when I did Summertime, I remember, you know, I said, man, you know, I think they asked me or something. I said, you think Snoop would want to be on a song? I said, man, I could find out, you know. I'll get a budget together and I'll present it to him, and we'll see what's happening, you know. And he did it for pretty little money because, you know, because he liked me, and, you know, I wanted to get somewhere with this. So he did the Snoop and Sublime remix for Summertime, you know. And I mean, that just, to me, that came out great, you know. I loved how that one worked out. But, yeah, man.
Because of the demise of Brad, it's pretty common knowledge he had a habit at the time. Did that come through at the studio? Were there missed dates? Was there any poor performance there? Could you tell outwardly that there was something going on there?
No, not really. I don't think. I mean, when I was doing sessions with them, they weren't like in the studio all fucked up and stuff like that. It wasn't like that. They were just, getting their music done, just like anybody else. I mean, I'm telling you, I was surprised when I got to LA. I thought it was gonna be more of that. I thought it was all Guns N' Roses and, everybody just, just high and messed up all the time. And I come to find out, it wasn't really like that. The people that were really doing well were ones that weren't getting all, a lot of drugs and wasted and liquor and all that stuff. So I was kind of surprised. But I still noticed, even with Sublime, I was like, they're just getting things done. So I didn't see them really like that. But I was young. I can't say that. I think I saw a lot of what I wanted to see back then, just like with Suge. And just like with a lot of people, I saw what I wanted to see. But I didn't see them as like drugs and all that being a problem. But I'm working with Brad's son right now. I'm working with Jacob. Yeah, I just did 3 songs with him acoustically, and I mixed those and everything. They sound killer, and we're trying to do something with that right now too. So he's got a pure voice. He's great, like great. He sounds great. And some of his songs are really good and catchy and stuff. It could be like Sublime picked up right where it left off,
Yeah, I honestly, I've been following him for a while, and
he's very good.
He does have a great singing.
He's got that band Law, but I don't know if I don't know what their deal is. But I like him as a solo artist, and I have been working with him, and he likes working with me and stuff. Huh?
Is that something that you did here?
No, I did that at my house. I actually recorded it down in Hermosa, where they have a studio down there that they do some work out of. And then I took it to my house and mixed it.
Sonically, what tickles you right now in the industry? Is there any band, or other than what we mentioned, a group, or you're listening to the radio because you tune into these things like an editor watching TV. You see the hard edits and everything. Is there anybody that's really just like dead stick right now in terms sonically that you just like? When you're for your ear, you'll turn it up.
I think that a lot of hip hop these days has gotten a little more candied down a little bit. It's a little sweeter, a little more, in a musical term, major, and it's not as edgy as it once was and everything. And I think that, I remember the first time when I heard dubstep, I was just like, wow, like that's edgy, That is something that's got edge to it and really takes it to a different level. And I thought, maybe if you put some rap over some dubstep or kind of intertwine some of these genres like that, that would be cool, So I think right now that's where my mind was. And in fact, Skrillex was in here just like a couple weeks ago or something. He met Anthony, and Anthony brought him up here and they collaborated on a beat or something. But yeah, I think that stuff is pretty edgy. And I kind of like that sonically, and I like that, the feel of it and stuff. Even though I do feel it's going to be a little more short-lived unless it's meshed with something else,
Yep.
But,
and they do.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do.
I've heard it. I've heard it with some people, so, yeah.
Is there anything else that you're doing that I could fit in here? Because I want to use this in your benefit in order to promote you.
Yeah. I don't know, if anybody needs a room to lease out, let Jesse know, man.
Can we get a sign? Maybe just put a sign for rent,
Yeah, and that would make things move quickly. And yeah, anybody who's interested in buying it, that'd be great. But it's not like it. We've along the way we've had some great times in here. really since I've opened it. In 2010, it took me a year to build it out the way I wanted it, and then it took like, I don't know, a half a year for some of my tenants to change it all around. So it kind of looks nothing like how I had it. But we've had some really good people in here. You know, we started off our first session with J-Lo, and we had Kesha come in, and we had guys from further, like I'm into jam bands and stuff, you know. I produced the Mo album, if you guys know who that is. They're like a heavy-duty jam band from like upstate New York, and they do
Jam bands
good.
are great. You go to their concerts, you have no idea what they're going to play.
Yeah.
You just go and you're going to be entertained. It's just They just do their thing.
So we did an album. I've known them for 15 years, and it was always like, we got to get in the studio together sometime, and it just never was working out until, like, I don't know, a couple years ago, and then we got in there and we did an album. So that was pretty cool. But I like the amount of people we've had in here. We've had YG came in here. We did My Hitters in here. DJ Quick was in here. Devontae Swing rented out my middle room for like a year and a half. We've had a lot of really cool people come through. Snoop has, of course, been here. Aron Hall was here. Just a ton of people, you know. And
The walls could talk.
yeah, I mean, you know, that to me that means a lot in itself. You know, just that people come into your facility and they're doing work out of here. You know, that means a lot to me. I like that. And I bought the place because I figure, you know, man, even if it's just a studio and someone else even mixing it or something like that, still the studio would get their plaque, you know, and it's just as good as my studio. So,
In closing, is there anybody, with the obvious exceptions, you have your U2s and your Prince, and you know the people at Death Row. Was there anybody that you went to work with that you were starstruck by?
that I was starstruck by.
Yeah.
Yeah, because U2 and Prince, they were my two favorite like artists in high school, and it was you know, besides maybe Bruce Springsteen or something, and it kind of, you know, unbelievable to be in the studio with them, you know. But yeah, you know, honestly, there were people working when I was working with Prince. There were people working next door in Studio B that I was starstruck by. You know, George Michael came in there. David Bowie was in there working one day. I mean, you know, there was so many people that would come through that studio. You know, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis was in there. I got to work with them and stuff, you know. And I mean, I was just, you know, there's people that you're like, wow, I'm really in the studio with them, you know. And yeah, that happens. That happens. Luckily, it does happen. And if you put yourself in that right position, you know, and the timing is right, then it lines up and it does happen.
Because I suppose where I'm getting at is because this is your profession, if you're still a fan. Because
I am, yeah. I'm still a fan. You know, if certain people walked in, I'd be like, wow, you know. I mean, I got to work with Tina Turner. That was a big deal, you know. That was a big deal. I got to work with Patti LaBelle. She's a great singer with Prince producing, you know. That was an amazing time, you know. There's been like amazing times where you've just been like, is this really happening, you know? But yeah, you know, I'm still a fan. It's harder knowing more and more and more of the newer groups, you know, and try to keep up with all of that. But when I do hear something I really like, I lean towards that, and hopefully, you know, you put the right energy there, it'll work. That you're actually working with them eventually, you know. It's weird how that happens, but it does.
if you would have, do you have any advice for someone that's looking to get into the technical side of the music industry?
Into the technical side?
Yeah, to do what you do.
To do what I do?
Yeah, to not, if someone wants to get into mixing.
I mean, I also think, like what I do is a lot of musicality involved as well. You know what I mean? It's not just technical stuff. All the productions that I do is all music based, and then I make calls on technical stuff as an engineer and a mixer, but when I'm producing something, I'm thinking of it more musically at first. Then luckily I'm able to mix my stuff. I don't have to hire a mixer to do it, and I know exactly what I want and how to get it. And I think, that's important, I think it's important for new people to, to really go out and find the best artists that they can work with, maybe to work at the best studios they can find where people are coming in. I mean, that's all I know is to go to the best studio where big people were coming in, and I just want to work there. I just got a list of studios and I just was reading their credits and I'm like, that's the place I'm going to apply here, and that's the place I want to apply there. And I applied to like Record Plant, Larrabee, I forget, there's a few other ones. It was like a list of top 5. And, I think new people just have to be able to weed out a lot of these situations. Like, I don't know, a lot of people are working for free these days. And they're just doing things just to try to get on and stuff. And I didn't want to really have to do that. I thought that was going to be, not the right road to go down. I still want to make, it's still a profession, it's not just a music hobby. So, I feel like a lot of people are more willing to do stuff for likes these days and for streaming, and they're giving songs away just so that they can be internet famous. And, I just don't, I think it works for some people, and then I don't think it works for most people. But, that's what the industry's come to, and you kind of got to evolve with it. And, if that's what things are, that's what things are, Digital downloads and all that stuff, I mean, you're fortunate if you can still sell them because everybody can get them for free. Well, why would you buy something when you can get it for free? I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.